Okay, what if I told you that being a private person isn't a weakness, but actually it's a superpower? Today, we're going to explore this really fascinating idea that could totally change how you see those quiet, reserved people in your life. Or, hey, maybe even how you see yourself. Let's dive in.
It's a question we've all asked at some point, right? You meet someone who just doesn't share a lot. They kind of keep their cards close to their chest, and your mind just immediately starts racing, trying to figure it out. What's their deal? What's really going on there?
And you know that wondering usually leads us down a pretty familiar and often pretty judgmental path. So let's start by just tackling the big myth, the story we usually tell ourselves about people who really value their privacy.
All right, so check this out. On the left, you've got our default settings, right? The common view. We see someone being private and we think, are they secretive, aloof? Maybe they don't trust people, or the big one, they must be hiding something. But what if the truth is something completely different? Look at the right column. What if that privacy is actually a sign of deep self-awareness, of being in control? What if it's a hallmark of emotional intelligence and they're just protecting their energy? It's a total flip of the script.
Think about it. We live in a culture that just celebrates oversharing. So when someone holds back, it can really look like a flaw, can't it? We're basically taught that being an open book is the goal. So when someone decides to keep a few chapters to themselves, we're quick to judge it as some kind of social problem. But what we're looking at today suggests we might have been getting it all wrong.
So let's make a big pivot here. Let's really dig into the core idea of this whole explainer, that there is a really powerful, direct link between a person's need for privacy and their emotional intelligence.
And boom, here it is. This quote just gets right to the heart of everything. The conscious choice to control what you reveal about yourself. It isn't about pushing people away. It's actually a really sophisticated act of self-management. And it turns out that's a key indicator of emotional intelligence. This isn't about being antisocial. It's about being emotionally strategic.
Now, to really get this, we need this key term, high privacy orientation. And this isn't just about being a quiet person. As you can see, it's the conscious and deliberate management of your personal world. It's an active skill, something you do, not just a passive trait that you have.
So how does this all plug into emotional intelligence, or EI? Well, EI is basically built on these four pillars. You've got self-awareness, which is knowing your own emotions. Self-regulation, which is managing them. Empathy, which is understanding others' feelings. And social skill, which is basically handling relationships. Now keep these four things in your head because they are absolutely crucial for what's coming next.
So, the big question is, how does having a high privacy orientation actually build those skills? Let's break down how setting strong boundaries can become a legitimate source of emotional strength. I love how this lays out the process. It's a logical flow. It starts with step 1, you curate your input. You're basically the bouncer for your own mind, controlling the emotional noise that gets in. Then, step 2, you regulate your output. You get to choose what you share and who you share it with. And what's the result of all that? Step 3, you preserve your precious mental and emotional energy. You avoid that feeling of burnout from being emotionally overexposed. And all of this leads directly to the final payoff. Step 4, you enhance your own sense of control, which actively builds those core EI skills we just talked about, self-awareness and self-regulation. And this is probably the best way to think about it. We have this tendency to see privacy as this giant brick wall, right? Designed to keep everybody out. But a much better, much more accurate way to see it is as a really sophisticated filter. A filter doesn't block all connection. It just lets the right things in and the right things out, protecting the whole system from getting totally overloaded. Which brings us to this really powerful concept, the emotionally sovereign mind. That's someone who has true mastery over their own inner world. So what does this all mean for you, for us, in the real world? How does this idea actually change our lives and our relationships?
Okay, this is so important to understand. There's a huge difference between privacy that comes from fear and privacy that comes from intelligence. On the left, you've got fear-based privacy. The why behind it is hiding from judgment or running from conflict. The action is avoidance and isolation, and the result is usually disconnection and anxiety. But on the right, you have intelligence-based privacy. Here, the why is about protecting your mental and emotional space. The action isn't avoidance, it's deliberate selective sharing. And the result? Authenticity and focused energy. So for example, a coworker asks you, "Hey, you seem a little down today, what's up?" The fear-based response might be a really blunt, "I'm fine," which just shuts everything down. The intelligence-based response might sound more like, "Thanks for asking, I appreciate it. I'm just processing some personal stuff right now, but I'm glad you checked in." See the difference? One builds a wall. The other maintains a connection while still protecting a healthy boundary. It's the why that changes everything.
So really, the big takeaway here is this incredibly powerful reframing. That private person you know, they aren't necessarily withdrawn or scared. There's a very good chance they're actually emotionally self-sufficient. They're an individual who knows exactly how to manage their inner world so that they can show up in the outer world on their own terms, with real focus and real strength.
And that really leaves us with a final question to just sit with for a little bit. In a world that is constantly screaming at us to share more, to be more visible, to put it all out there, what is the real power, the true superpower of the thoughts, feelings, and parts of yourself that you choose deliberately to keep just for you? It's definitely something worth thinking about.